your whole background.
I'm going to record this time, even though it doesn't really
Super.
matter. I can always retrieve it. But yeah. Hi, Sue.
Yep. Hi, guys. This is the new studio. This is what used to be our 2-car garage. And now I've got it starting to come together with everything that I need just to be creative, do my thing, have all my storage stuff in one spot. And I've got all kinds of pictures in front of me that I've done all my favorites from the last 6 years. I scrounged for different sizes of frames with all the Goodwill and Salvation Army and Savers stores that I could find.
I used to go to Goodwill to find frames, and then once I found a frame, I would do the picture.
Yes, I've heard of other people doing that very same thing.
And let me. Sizes.
Yes. All right, I got to turn up the audio for you guys. All right, and then let me check the audio for my input. I can system preferences, I think, is what I need.
Is Otter going to join us?
I am not sure that he is.
Are you trying to adjust your audio? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, I am. Just so that it comes into my headset a little bit better.
Okay.
There, that's better. Okay, that did that.
Well, he could always hide off screen like he did last time too.
Well, and I'll talk to him about that and see if I can persuade him to do that. My problem is if I have this on, then he doesn't hear what's going on because we've told the computer just to go through the Bluetooth, and he can't wear a set of headphones and hear. There's a little bit of echo still in the studio. It's better with everything on the walls or getting up on the walls, but it's still a little bit there. But so we'll see what he does. I'll see if I can persuade him. But he looked like he was kind of set where he was in the living room. We've got friends here helping with garden and getting the house picked up and cleaned up. That's our usual Friday morning stuff. And the fellow that walked through the room is my volunteer who does our website, but he also is a audio tech guy and so helps me set this up so that I'm hardwired, not on any kind of a Wi-Fi, so that we get a better signal and is more consistent and doesn't have the threat of dropping out or having to go through walls.
Your sound is really good, and your camera is good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. Glad to hear that. How have you guys been? My goodness, it's been how many months?
6? A year, I guess.
Has it been a year? Oh, you baby.
Well, it was last year, technically, so I don't remember when it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
What that you guys are on? Was it last year?
Probably.
I
don't think it was 22. I think it was 21.
Boy, time flies by fast.
Oh, it does. Oh my gosh. And it speeds up. The older we get, the faster it goes, I think. So
we want to get to our true home, I guess. We're anxious to get back home.
Yes, I understand that. It's a place where it's not quite as crazy. Anyway,
I always feel like we're not on air yet. I guess we're going to be a few more minutes before we're on the air.
Yeah.
But I think about you guys a lot. It's like so historic that, the Sandia Mountain crew, they're reaching out and touching humanity, and they're teaching and just their presence. But I got tuned into this thing about the Inside Out team. And
tell me about the Inside Out team. This is the first I've heard of this.
The lady who is having contact, an ongoing contact with her ET relatives, and I don't know, they were joking around or something, or they were talking. She was talking about something about how the ETs and the higher spiritual beings connect with humans and then transform them from the inside out. You don't hear them talking.
Oh,
You don't hear them talking about. And then the ET replied, "Yeah, yes, we're team inside out."
huh,
And
huh.
so, and then you start thinking about it. Who else does that? It's the emotional healers do that. The shamans do that. It's inside out. It's not go out there and change the world. It's change
No,
who you are, who your interconnection. You know, you're like a telepathy is an inside sensation. It's inside.
yes, it's an inside job, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
So,
that's exactly right.
so then,
that
and
makes
the
perfect sense.
Sasquatch, they don't just tell you how to run your life. They give
No,
you experiences and they make you think about what's connected to what. How does it all work? And that's it. They kind of provoke that inside out connection. Yeah. So
hmm,
there's a lot of inside out teams that are going on. All the star seeds are inside out. You know, they're not. You don't hear star seeds out there protesting climate change, but
no.
they're the ones who are doing the workshops and healings and music things and so that
Yeah, the
was
Ponte call
affirmation.
them the way showers. They are the way showers. They show you the way.
And
Yeah.
just being the vibration, being the right vibration for the right reason.
Yeah.
We're very, very firmly convinced that the Ponte brought Otter and I together and brought me down to the Albuquerque area from Iowa, because I first met them in Iowa and had very intense experiences with them between 1998 and about 2003. And then it tapered off for a while again. And uh, when I met Otter, he had had experiences of various kinds, ET related, since he was a young boy too. And when we got to talking to each other, we realized that we had come kind of to the same spiritual place in life, just from different paths. And so we gladly shared with each other all the different variety of things that had brought us together to meet at a sacred event. And we met at a traditional Lakota Sundance.
Yeah.
And ended up cooking for the Sundance together. And so I got to know him very quickly, working in the kitchen, cooking for 150 people, without running water or electricity. And that was a real trick in 95 to 100-degree Iowa heat with 95% humidity.
Well, that's interesting because you guys, like with me, I mean, ever since I was born, I knew I was, like people like us, we know we're different and we feel like we don't belong here and all that kind of stuff, right? But I didn't really get introduced to the Sasquatch and actually understand what I'm experiencing now until 2012. So you guys have been doing this for a lot longer than that.
Well, I came at things through a pagan magical understanding, trying to understand energy work and how it worked. Otter came through a shaman's path and studied shamanism from all over the world. And that helped both of us kind of see where each other had been and come from. But I can't tell you how many people I talk to who are trying to walk a spiritual path, but their partner is not supportive.
Right.
And that's really hard. I remember trying to do it solo with no partner at all and knew that I was looking for a spiritual somebody, but didn't find Otter and that complete overlap until 2012.
Well, lucky you didn't meet the world's handsomest man first. Otherwise, he would have grabbed you up. Poor Otter would be still looking.
2012. That seems like an auspicious year.
It does seem. Mm-hmm.
That's when I had my first interaction with the Sasquatch, and they took me on a vision quest to talk to a rock, and I talked to this rock for 3 hours in my dreams.
Wow!
And that rock was the God rock. And
my goodness!
And the God rock was saying, "Water and rock make life." And the first thing that life does once it's created is make more water and rock. And then it went on for the 3 hours to go every step of evolution from on this planet of all the animals and all the plants and everything is water and rock being made life. And that was my first introduction to the inside out, right? So because when you
Sure.
talk to a tree or you talk to a rock or you can talk to a lake or talk to the water, that's an inside out kind of thing. And to let us, the Sasquatch did that to let me know that they knew what I was thinking and that everything in this universe, everything is conscious and can talk to you.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like that. That's something that was kind of a fringe kind of, oh, yeah, that's probably right. But when you have a direct experience, like whether you talk to an eagle or talk to a Sasquatch person, that's when it really comes home. Or talk to a rock.
Oh yeah.
It's funny that you say that because we were introduced to that concept by Tilcom in the first year and a half that we were talking to him. He introduced us to archaeoplanetography. I don't know if you've seen any of that on my YouTube channel.
That's kind of a lot of fun.
The archaeoplanetography images in the landscape are interactive. If you talk to them, they talk back.
Oh wow.
And it's the very same concept that you have talking to your rock, only in this instance, the dimensional beings that help form, create, and update the images in the landscape all are still present when you discover the image and go, oh, wow, whoever the artist was that created this did a fabulous job. What beautiful detail. And then that artist appreciation for being recognized, for being somebody seeing the image for the first time in thousands of years and going, wow, you did nice. They interact very freely with that, and you end up learning a great deal more about the area and its ancient history. And so we're sorting out now how to understand which era or which epoch, which age of man, which images go with. And the closer the images are to the surface or ground level images are the most updated. And the Sasquatch use the images in the landscape as guideposts because they have names for all of them. It's part of the history of the area. And so if there's a face in the mountain next to where they live, then they refer to that face by name. And they understand the history of why that face is there in the landscape in the first place. We didn't get validation about the archaeoplanetography system until we talked to Clifford Mahooty. And when Clifford first saw me outlining and explaining the archaeoplanetography images, his jaw dropped. But he didn't say anything to us for about 4 or 5 months. And after I had shown him the very first rudimentary things we were discovering, he called me up and he said, remember the images in the landscape? I said, yeah. He said, would you look around Zuni and put together a compilation for me that I can see? And that's when he told me that the images in the landscape were talked about in the Zuni's most ancient prayers, and that the images in the landscape were put there, and the peoples whose images were in the landscape won the right to have their images placed there. That's the wording it is that's in the ancient Zuni prayers, is that they won the right to.
Hey guys, we're gonna go live now. So let's
we're going live. Yeah, let's go live.
Let's just
I
be
love
quiet
that story.
and I'll introduce.
Hi, no, it's not. It's not right. Hi, no, it's not right. It's not. Gotta go live first. Oh, there it is.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pork and Bean Show. My name is Pork Cunningham, And I'm here with the world's handsomest man, the guru of love, Frank Oliver Bain.
Hello, everybody. And today we have some special, super special guests, Sue Walker and Reverend White Otter. And
Well, if he shows up, he's not feeling that well,
he's
right?
there. He's there. His essence is there.
Oh, well put. Well said.
We were just talking about the holographic. What is that? The holographic or fractal side of consciousness that you can talk to a rock, or you can talk to a whole mountain, or you can talk to a whole landscape, and that each one will give you different information. I think that's fascinating.
Sue, have you found on this subject? It's really interesting because I found lately, or in the last, it's kind of developed where I'll be walking in the forest. I can see Sasquatch faces or images in just about every tree. I can see them in almost every rock, and I can introduce myself to them, and they seem like they almost got, they got their little personalities and whatever. Do you experience that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, we do. Back in 2014, before our extraterrestrial friends, the Ponte, even asked about going onto a social media account, Commander Tilcomb spent a year and a half intensively instructing us into the organized system of images in the landscape that you can see from very high orbit, the biggest ones, or as you descend and get closer to the planet, the more updated ones. And the entire system of understanding images in the landscape, he called archaeoplanetography. Archaeo means ancient, planet, that's celestial body. Ography is written or recorded. And he said that every world they had ever explored contained these images retelling the history of the planet. And if there wasn't a sentient nation on that world, it would illustrate the dominant species in an area. And so you could, in essence, orbit a planet, study the images in the landscape, and understand the history of the planet before you ever set foot on it.
Yeah, but even little things, like even little rocks and
even
trees,
little
whatever,
stuff. Yes, it is everywhere. And as I watch some of the researchers go up into the high country, I see exactly what you're talking about. And the Sasquatch do too, because we see them specifically moving rocks and boulders into positions so that the face in the rock or the boulder faces outward to the vista, or faces someone coming up the path so that they know which way to go. And we understand that the Sasquatch have names for all of these faces and frequently understand the history of why the faces are there. But I agree with you. I see faces in a lot of things that others don't. I think part of it is being an artist. I'm used to looking for subtle changes in shades of light and shadow. Now, people often will pipe up and say, oh, that's just pareidolia.
I don't think
pareidolia is the name for our brains and our innate ability to recognize a face. We have it. All animals have it. And the system of archaeoplanetography was designed around that fact so that everybody could understand what was going on. It goes beyond language and it reaches down deep, and you begin to understand the consciousness behind everything.
Yeah.
The land and the forest is talking to you. And we used to say that Native Americans could read the signs. These are the signs. These are the things that they were taught to read and understand.
Yeah.
That there's intelligence behind the faces that you see, and you can interact with them.
When I walk through the woods and whatever, and I see them, I'm hello, how are you? I greet them, I talk to them. And you know, initially, before I started seeing them in everything, like rocks and all the trees or whatever, the Sasquatch would leave me a bunch. I think they were teaching me like the rudimentary lesson to it. They would leave me a bunch of rocks that had faces and stuff in them, like, and where they find them or whatever. It's just, but you know, these were very, very obvious. And and then it developed into, okay, well, they've got consciousness, these rocks and these trees. And well, we know trees have consciousness. That's been proven scientifically, but
sure,
you know, but I mean, everything does, even rocks. Obviously, as Mr. Beans will attest to with his rock story. So we were talking about inside out. You know, I'd like to inside out job. You know, that's one of the things that I have a problem with some religions or whatever, is that you give the authority and you give the responsibility in a sense, not totally, over to an omnipotent deity, where it really has to come from inside, because we have got, we are part of God. We're all part of God. Everything that, well, like Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within all of us. And I just got a big energy rush from whoever confirming that. But so, you know, like, I think we're selling ourselves short when we give that authority to some invisible, omnipotent deity. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it can't exist. I think it's the collective, myself, but it's an inside job. And do you want to talk on that a little bit, you and Dean?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all. I think it is an inside job, because if we don't know how to listen to ourselves and the things that are going on or interacting with us, if we can't hear things in a right-minded way, if we pick up something and then just toss it aside like, oh, well, I must be making that up, or it was a dream, it was nothing, then we miss a lot of things because we've dismissed them out of hand. Nobody taught us in school to do that listening, that inside out work. It was and is part of spirituality, but also part of connecting deeply with the world around you and embracing all kinds of different input and energies, however they're going to come. The inside out job, Otter has always said, you know, telepathy is an inside job. And he's right. You have to work on self before you can accept or understand that input from others. If you don't have a right-minded approach to things, you're not going to get it. It's not going to be something that you understand and can embrace deeply. The thought that you guys brought up earlier, that everything, rocks and trees and sky and clouds, all have a consciousness behind them, is something that maybe we were taught in Sunday school or at whatever a spiritual path, but it was kind of glossed over. And I found that by unglossing it and kind of delving into it deep, there's a whole lot of incredible understanding and information you receive just because you've asked. And I think that the universe kind of treats us all like adults. It waits for us to ask the question in order for us to get the answer. But we got to ask.
Well, I just wrote a post today, actually, pertaining to this, and I feel like I'm in that vibration, along with Brian's just getting a little rush. My post went like this: the kind of God that you have is the kind of God that you are, because the kingdom of
Oh,
heaven is
well
within.
put.
That's a nice sentence.
Yes,
That's a nice line, man.
Yeah,
that is a
and
nice
Well, thanks
line.
for coming. You're done now. You can't
I'm
top
done.
that.
Yeah. Well, the point is, if you have compassion and self love, then your God is going to be compassionate and self loving God. If you have guilt and shame and blame that you live with, then your God is going to be a God of righteousness and just what do you call it, judgment and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So that's really the ultimate inside job, is to become the God, the right kind of God to yourself. How do you run your inner world, your inner thoughts, your feelings, your points of view, and your inner questions? Like you said
How
about
do you stay
questions.
connected? How do you
Yeah,
walk with a foot in each world? One in the everyday, pay your bills, and do the laundry, make your meals world, and the other world is the listening to the input from the spiritual world, the unseen world, so that you don't miss it, because it's as important as the physical world, if not more so. And so I don't disagree with you at all. I think that walk with a foot in each world takes practice. It's not something that, if you're not used to doing it, you can pick up and do in 15 minutes and be successful at. It takes some concentration to keep a listening ear out all day long, every day, for other input from the unseen world, whether that's telepathic input or input from another source. We find that knowing a telepathic nation that's close by, we naturally just keep an ear out for them. And if they have something to say about whatever is going on, or a question that we have, then we can hear them and respond and interact. But you're right, that connection has to be an inside job. You have to work on self. And
and who the self is in my world is the total of the content of your consciousness. And this is really important, because most people don't think of the content of their consciousness. That means every action that you take, and every action that was done to you, is held in the content of your consciousness. And a lot of that stuff is really bad. So we live with a chip on our shoulder, we live in anxiety and stress. This is not you. This is the content of your consciousness that is foreign to you, and that needs to be released. This is what the great shamans do, and the great healers, is they look at what is adversity, what is painful, what is traumatic, and they say that's not you, and then they help you to get rid of that. So in a way, it's sort of like clearing your own kingdom, of things that are not you, and yet they have influence over you. And that means you cannot be sovereign in your own kingdom if you have conditioning and programming and bad habits and just a bad situation that you had to adapt to, and you can see it in with people who get into drugs and alcohol, and the content of their consciousness is so painful that they have to smoke marijuana or do drugs, or become binge drinkers or something like that, in order to 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 not have the full effect of the content of their own consciousness. Yeah, and that's the world we create. Though government, by the way, is an exact mirroring of our collective consciousness.
that's scary, isn't
That
it?
is scary.
Very scary.
Well,
You're right, but it's scary.
that's scary. And if we're not in that position of being the loving, caring, compassionate God within, then we don't have. If we don't have that, then we're not going to see that on the outside. What you get on the outside is the way you treat yourself on the inside, and that's where you got the lies, the deceit, the power struggle, the try to dominate, people trying to dominate each other, and all that stuff. That is all symptoms of traumatic inner world.
It is. That's very true. That's very
Yeah.
true.
And the core truths that the Sasquatch are stressed with me are all like the ticket to reversing that. You know, like love, no judgment, no division, no fear. All of those things that our collective consciousness is experiencing right now with government and just the way we are, whatever is well, totally opposite of our true nature. And so that's what the Sasquatch are introducing me to.
Mhm.
That's really the whole thing that I do, because it's called the core truths. That's the only really thing that's important. Everything else, well, I wouldn't say everything else, but Sue and I figured out a long time ago, my wife Sue and I, that the Sasquatch mirror us in the sense that the core truths are across the board, and I think they stand separate, but they mirror us because we're on a soul journey, a soul path. So they will support us in whatever ideas or things that not outside of the core truths, I mean, that we come up with, because we have to have the free will in order to grow, right?
We're here to experience change, and with change comes growth. Can be good, can be bad, but we're trying to find our way right now in a world that's in a world of hurt. The people around us are in a world of hurt, and the planet's in a world of hurt.
That's kind of why, like, you can have two people who are connected to Sasquatch and whatever, and they will come up with totally different answers. Like, for instance, let's talk about the cure-all thing that they're trying to promote these days. Some people will say that their Sasquatch says it's good. Other people say it's bad, and that's because they mirror what we think of it, because it's free choice, it's free will. That makes sense, right?
It does. It does.
But a lot of people don't realize that. I see all kinds of people, they don't understand that that's going on. It's, maybe I'm not expressing it properly, but you know what I mean, right?
I do. The Sasquatch are trying to teach through example. They're showing us the right way to do things instead of telling us the right way to do things.
Exactly.
They're displaying that what the Ponti call advanced civilization level 0 and above,
right,
where they take care of 100% of their population. They provide them with food and shelter and clean water and care and medicinals and education. And when we as Earth humans do that same, providing 100% for 100% of our population, we will be at advanced civilization level 0. And it's the place to start. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're not taking care of our people. We're not taking care of our planet. We're not thinking 7 generations plus ahead. And we're still of the opinion of dominion over instead of merging with the energy of the people and the places around us, so that we understand them and they understand us, and we work in synergy. And that synergy is just not happening to it right now, not with the belief system we have of dominion over. And that has been a downfall for Earth humans for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's what we were brought up about earlier about. We got to balance this. Like we're in the hole, we're in the swamp, but in reality, we also have so many people on the inside out team that are pulling us out. People are working with the grid. People are doing, peace circles, and people are doing meditations, and it just goes on, and healing circles, and the First Nations, all people, they're still doing their dances and their ceremonies. So there's a lot going in the right direction.
How do
There
I get on
is.
that Inside Out poster, by the way? I see that you're on it. I'm not on there. How do I get on
You gotta be friends with people.
You got to
Yeah.
find your tribe.
You know, but just getting back to the core truths, and this is, you know, the subject we're talking about anyway. Like when I had my Love Zap, it was such a profound download. I got all that information, getting energy again, given to me all just right there. And I knew that is the key to how we turn this around. They're giving us the keys as to how we can transcend, how we can change who we are, or not who we are, but become who we really are, whatever. And it's all about love, no judgment, no fear, just fear, you know, and get over the myth of separation and whatever, because we're so easily controlled by all those things. And it's, you know, it's there's the power in the whole and the collective. When we're all divided, I mean, we're just like rats running around in a maze, you know, like, and, how can we accomplish anything? So,
Well, when television became the entertainment that kept us in our small little cracker box houses,
yeah,
and moved us away from interacting with our neighbors and our community, we became isolated, and the main input that we had for how to live our lives came from that little box with all these images being broadcast. And that little box has taken up a lot of our time and been replaced by other little boxes like smartphones, like game systems. And I think we're seeing the result of that separation from each other with the mass shootings that we're seeing. We're seeing young people just outside of reality, thinking that they can use guns and there's no consequence that's lasting, just like in a video game. They don't have a comprehension that of what they're really doing as far as death to or severe injury to others and suffering that they're causing across multiple fronts. They're just thinking about themselves. They're isolated, and that isolation is something that none of us can survive very long with, because if you isolate any of us and put us in a cell and don't have any kind of communication, our mental health deteriorates very quickly. We need touch. We need communication. We need other input. And in order to keep learning, we need input from right-minded folks or folks who are attempting to stay active, to stay communicating, to stay learning. I tell you what, I think Otter and I have gotten more understanding, more lessons, more connection understanding of things and how they work in the last 10 years than in the last 50 before that or more. And so we have delightful discussions, but I'm blessed to have a partner to discuss it with that understands completely and takes the unusual things that we've experienced together and just chalks it up as part of our history. And we don't make any bones about the unusual stuff. It's just, wow, that was interesting. And we know that every day we're alive, we'll just put our feet on the floor and say, okay, something strange is going to happen today. Let's go find out what it is. And so we want to roll with those things. And we joke that we're on Team Quirky. Something quirky is going to happen. And we'll laugh about it at the end of the day and put it in with all the other things that we're understanding and go, okay, another piece, another key.
You know, the
Okay,
idiot,
let's keep going.
you know, the idiot box and the internet and all these things, that they're good and bad. They can bring people together because they connect people all around the world, but they can also be used to brainwash and divide people. So there's, it depends on how you look at it, I suppose.
Yeah, it does. And you're right. Not all little idiot boxes are bad.
What's that, Beans?
It's part of a bigger plan because like that. Remember, I don't know if I ever told you about that when I talked to the Rock. It was like, you know, in my dream, in dream time, it was a vision. And then that gives you room for doubt. But the next day, the Rock kept talking to me. So he talked to me a little bit more. And he said, you know, he gave me this little vision of how the rock and water wanted to give human beings light. So they started poking the humans to study electricity, right?
Wow.
And so water and rock make electricity. Okay, that was one day. Then the next day, they were talking about from the electricity was you know, TV and all that kind of stuff. And eventually that led over to the internet because the water and rock wanted people to connect, and that connecting on the internet is the closest thing to psychic connection. You know, it's the closest thing you can physically get to like develop that. And then the last thing they showed us is they wanted us to know the physics of energy. And it was very elaborate what they showed me. They showed me this generator and the wire and how the wire would travel down the wire, and it went to these scientists who were studying the physics of light, whether light is a particle or whether it's a wave. They showed how the light went into this little box and projected onto a little screen, and the whole of quantum physics was done at the request of the rock people. You know what I'm saying? So
wow.
So what, to me, this whole thing was about the team inside out, right? That we had to discover electricity, we had to discover lights and TV and radio. We had to discover, you know. But these were elementals that were helping us do that, and that's because of this whole thing of the Earth wanted us to do that. It's time for us to be awakened and to be connected, and well, so that's just inside out, and then. You know, have this near-death experience thing that people in the millions have had. Well, that's team inside out from the angels and the Godhead. They take people and you're not doing so good, and then you know take them up and squeeze them out and wrinkle, you know, wash them a little bit, let them dry, and send them back, and they're like, oh my God, it was all love, and it was all, you know, it's all inside out, and God, and all, you know, my life changed. I'm gonna write a book. Yeah.
By the way, Sue.
So there's more to this inside out team thing going on than we would normally notice.
By the way, Sue, if you're talking, don't ever say you're dumb as a box of rocks, because the rocks get pissed off.
Yeah, they got an ego problem.
They don't like that they're considered to be dumb, dumb as a rock. Obviously, the one that Beans was talking to was pretty profound. So,
gentlemen, my headset is telling me that it's running on low battery, even though I charged it overnight. So I'm going to switch up headsets and get another one. If you talk amongst yourselves for just a second, I'll be right back.
If you get out of camera view, we'll talk about you while you're gone.
Okay.
So what do you think I heard, me? I'm just joking. I like that inside out team that you're on, because that is really what it's all about.
I think so. Well, I think that's sort of like a conceptualization or like to put it in a nutshell, what's going on with the world today. We have the hounds of hell barking at our heels, and when we got the inside out team doing miraculous awakenings and stuff. So we got these kind of, you know, the carrot and the whip, you know. I want to go to my higher self, and then you're slapped on Facebook jail and you know,
Yeah, you're a career criminal now. Just about every week you're in Facebook jail.
You don't play around on Facebook like I do. Everybody's getting thrown in jail. Everybody goes to jail for stupid stuff. You can't say anything without going to.
What'd you go to jail for this time?
I was just said stuff like kill them all, kill them all, kill their mothers, kill their fathers, kill the grandparents, kill them all, and then kill the God who made them. For some reason, they thought that was going against community standards. I don't know why they would say that, but that's
because
that's typically how you deal with demons. You kill them all, right? So they
don't have the intelligence to figure out what you're talking about when they say kill them all. They think you're going you're going to go postal or something.
Facebook jail.
Spiritually postal, but they probably figure you're going to get firearms. Go up on a tower or something, shooting at people or something like that.
Well, I could see if they're demons, then demons would get kind of miffed at the idea that somebody knows how to kill them.
Well, I mean, any kind of awakening stuff or anything that raises people's consciousness or strays away from the narrative of division and whatever they're preaching, they're gonna put you in jail for it because they don't want that information out. Well,
that's the whole point of brainwashing. They talk about mind control and brainwashing. It's not about mind control and brainwashing. It's about crushing your will. We all know that the government's rotten or that this is going on, it's criminal, this and that. But does anybody get up off of their butt and do anything about it? No, because the whole point of conditioning is to crush your will, to crush your power. You know what I'm saying? So we're sitting here powerless talking about, there's a conspiracy theory over here and there's hidden history over there. And we can't do anything about any of that stuff except feel powerless about it.
Yeah.
And all we can do is talk about it, but that doesn't really put you back in control of your own life or in charge of it,
No, that's a lot of people, they're not as dumb as we think. They say, yeah, we can see what's going on, but what can we do about it? They don't realize
why aren't people protesting in the street? In other countries, you see people getting out, like in Sri Lanka and the Netherlands and in England and Germany and in all kinds of places where the people are getting out and saying enough is enough. And that is the feeling of being in your power, is getting up, pulling up from your belly, to make it right and to make the injustice right. And that's an act of will. And the point of mind control is to crush your will. Well, what can you do? You just got to get along. And so we have tyranny upon tyranny and darkness upon darkness because they've been attacking our will. Not
division and connection. Mind. If we looked at it from as a perspective of we're all connected, we would have that power. But with division, we think we're just, what can little old me do, right? That's like all those protests you're talking about all around the world, a lot of it's farmers and whatever. Unless you go to alternative news media and whatever, you don't even hear anything about that. It's just like it's not even happening. They don't talk about that.
Well, it's shock therapy too. They give us a shock and a shock and a shock. And, it's like this person gets killed by the police and then you have the black people rioting and this person did something bad or we started a war and we killed 1 million people over here. That's shock after shock after shock. And after a while, you just can't respond to it anymore. You can't respond to the shock that you're feeling. It's sort of like this numbness, like, oh God, what can you do? And you turn away from it, So I don't know. It's just a tough nut to crack, but that's all because of what's going on inside of us. We have our deepest pain and we turn away from that. And because we turn to do that, then we turn away from the deepest pain that is going on in the world.
Yeah. So Sue, you were saying that Otter had some questions that he wanted to ask Beans or me, or you wanted to kind of have a discussion back and forth. Is there anything that
I don't know? Good question. I hadn't chatted with him about that.
How about yourself?
Did you make that up, Brian? Did you just make that up?
No, because he really did want to hear some of your better stories and really was talking about wanting to kind of do the swap tales by the fireside sort of podcast. so that we hear some of your best stories and you hear some of ours. And he said, I bet he has some really good stories. And he was just curious as to if he poked you and asked you what you'd come up with.
Well, how about me?
But that too, yeah. We know.
Brian's got ongoing, but actually better qualitative stories, but I've got some pretty dramatic ones too.
No, I don't. I've got a lot of stuff going on all the time, but they're all valid.
Qualitative. You're qualitative. What? You're a quality guy. You have qualitative stories.
Well, you know what? When you're in a good place with your journey, whatever, like I wouldn't change my journey with anybody. And it's not because it's better than anybody else's. I'm not judging anybody, but I wouldn't change it with anybody because it's mine and because it's, the Sasquatch and the teachers, they custom make their teachings according to your strengths and different things like that. So I'm tickled pink with my journey, but and we all should be. I'm sure you feel the same way, Sue.
I am, only because it's taken me into some very unusual places, but also answered a lot of questions that I've had hanging fire for decades. And so the connection that we've had with our extraterrestrial friends, the connection that we've had with the Sasquatch has brought an entirely different kind of awareness to our everyday world. And I don't know about you two gentlemen, but we have what we consider a spiritually open house so that anybody right-minded can come in and interact with us and be welcomed. And so we try and stay open to that all day, every day. And we've just met some marvelous beings from all over and learned a great deal from every one of them. And that's been something that when I was having UFO experiences back in 1998 and 1999 so intensely, I begged for someone to please just talk back with me. Please just talk to me. And I had to wait until 2013 for that to happen. So it was 15 years before, from the time I started really intensively asking until I got those answers back. And now that information faucet is on all the time. And we're constantly looking for interesting people with new experiences that we haven't had, or find that in any teaching situation that we're in, we probably come away learning as much from the students as anything that we do trying to teach them what we've learned.
In some cases more, because you're more in tune to what to listen for and what,
Yes.
You've had the experience, kind of.
The best teachers are the best learners.
Yes, when the student is ready, and we feel like we're students all day long, every day. Every day is different.
You know what I like what you said, and I've heard that with so many different couples or whatever. You feel like the Sasquatch or your guides or whatever, or the Ponte brought you together, and that's absolutely true. And Sue's in my experience too. I mean, they actually told me, we want you together. You have work to do for us, like mind speak wise, and then an avalanche of glyphs and messages and talking about our connection and our connection to them, and just like constant reassurance. They were even leaving us stuff like little house glyphs.
Wow.
And if the house was completely constructed, all the four walls were all together and whatever, it would mean that they were very happy with how our relationship was going. It was complete. It was progressing. But sometimes you'd find them with a wall, like at an angle, not quite connected, or part of the roof would be off or whatever. And it's just amazing. They were just telling me, yes, you guys are on the right path, or yes, you're you're doing well now. No, this has got to be a little better. That kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
it definitely bring people together.
So the glyphs contain symbolism and a deeper depth of meaning besides just the superficial.
Well, yeah, you were
that you
asking,
saw.
actually, you asked me a question the other day about the meaning of glyphs, right?
Hmm.
Well, it's what I tell everybody, basically, and I've proven this to myself. This is undeniable for me. I can't talk for everybody, but for me, it's as much of a fact as I'm going to go out and see the sun shining tomorrow. And that is that it's an agreement between you and them. You come up with an understanding of what it means, and you say, and they will adopt that meaning, and then they will start communicating with you according to that meaning moving forward. And that's 100% how it works. And as a matter of fact, because of the thing of time, like we're all in the now moment, the past, the present, the now is all connected. We're all one. Or all happening in the now moment, I should say. They are even communicating with me according to our agreed meaning of the glyphs years before I even formulate the thought. That's 100%. I don't even have any doubt. It's a fact to me.
I like that.
Like for instance,
That makes sense.
Yeah, for instance, Sue and I, our glyph is the fish glyph, and it means that we're connected. Okay, so I came up with that meaning. They adopt that meaning with me, and I'll look back, and then recently I came up with the meaning for the Y stick, which is man Sasquatch connected, right? Okay, so then I look back at my thousands and thousands and thousands of glyphs when I'm putting my videos or stories together. And I look back like 5 years previous or something, and I'm thinking, I want to get this glyph to put in the story. And I look at it and I say, wait a minute, there's the fish glyph with the Y stick woven into it. 5 years before I came up with the meaning for the Y stick, and it means you and Sue are connected, man and Sasquatch are connected, and we are connected to you. So that's to me how the glyphs work. I think if people want to work with them on that level with glyphs, don't try to figure out that there's and there may be, but I don't try to figure out a across the board meaning for them. Okay. Because if you want to connect with them and communicate with them one-on-one, you have to have your own meaning. So you asked me that. So that's how it works with me, and it's like I said, it's not even in dispute with me. I mean, this happens like all the time. I'm not talking about one specific example. It happens all the time, thousands of times. I wanted to ask you one more thing. I'll tell you a little. Maybe if you want to hear a couple stories, and Beans to tell a story and whatever too, I'll tell you a funny little one. But I just wanted to ask you one thing. Like mind speak and whatever. I know you teach that, and I want to get into that in a bit. But a form of mind speak is not only like words in your head; it's also like thought placement, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they do with me, really, really prevalent, is that. And I bet you it happens to you guys too. I'll be thinking, I wonder if it's like this. I'll have a thought come in my head. I wonder if this is how it is. And then the answer, as soon as I formulate the question, is right before me on the forest path in the form of a glyph or a sign or a raven calling, or something like that. It's like thought placement that, they give you the thought and they give you the answer. Is that something that you guys experience?
The immediate response? Many times, yes. Not always.
No. Sometimes it takes a while, but it usually comes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
But if we formulate a question that's specific, and I put it out to the universe, I learned this as a clairvoyant. that if I had a question, let's say I was looking for a missing child, and I just put the question out to the universe about this child, oftentimes I would get a half a dozen or a dozen different voices immediately responding to my question, but each one had a different piece. One might have a map, one might have a word or a phrase, one might have an image, one might have an emotion, one might connect to the person in the future to find the child, one might connect with how the child's health was. So all of these various different pieces of information would come back because they were all connected to the initial question I had about a missing child. And so I learned over the last 30 years that if I pose that question, the unseen world is anxious to answer and help. And so I just learned that it often came all at the same time, and I would have to sort out the layers of it.
Let me give you an example. I can give you a bunch of examples of how that works with me, but for instance, I'm looking at these structures, right? And people make structures, and Sasquatch make structures. It's really kind of hard to tell sometimes. Sometimes they're a collaborative effort. But I'm pretty considering our experiences, to have discernment is very important. Otherwise everything is this or that or whatever, and then you just kind of lose track. So I always try to have discernment. So one day I came across a structure, and I know that the Sasquatch utilize anything that's readily available. They'll use like cut logs if they're there. That's one thing I've always laughed at. So people say, well, it didn't make that. Look at the sawed off logs. Well, guess what? If they're there, they're going to use them. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they use string sometimes in their structures. Sometimes they just wrap it around and it's just hanging. Sometimes it's functional. But, when I see string in a structure, my discernment says, I wonder if it's kids, or start thinking, and this happened specifically one day, is it them, or is it frustrating? Structures are frustrating. Glyphs, not so much. So anyway, I'm thinking this thought about, did you do this kind of thing? And so as soon as I had that thought, I looked down on the ground below me, and there was a T glyph, which is a very common glyph. Immediately after I had this thought, a very common glyph. Glyphs can be made with all kinds of things: rocks, ferns, peel sticks are the most common for me, or just sticks, snap sticks. And so I looked down on the ground below me, and the vertical piece of this T glyph was a peeled stick. Okay. The horizontal piece that was perfectly centered, absolutely perfectly centered, was the exact same string as what I was contemplating in the structure.
I love it.
Thought, yes, answer. That's when I'm getting hit up with energy like this. Getting hit up with energy about 5 or 6 times in this show. So, do you want to tell a little story, Beans, and then I'll tell about my the big revelry that I experienced with a bunch of voices and stuff. You want to tell something?
Story. Let me see. Oh, I got a nice story. I was watching a video on YouTube, and it was a story about Sasquatch on Sasquatch Chronicles. And then what happened was this Sasquatch was escorting a hunter out of his territory, and so the Sasquatch was walking right alongside of him, and then at some point I could see that in my head, so I could actually see the Sasquatch as the guy was telling the story, and the story was from like 2012 or something, but I was watching it in 2019, but it was recorded in 2017, so we got 3 different years here, right? And I'm seeing this vision of this Sasquatch, and as I'm laying in bed just watching this, listening to it, and I see the image of the Sasquatch and seeing the whole story, and and the Sasquatch looked over at me, right? And I'm wide awake, except I had the second vision. And then he put out his hand like this, and I put out my hand like that, and we did a high five. And that was like all kind of fun. Okay, and I thought, well, that's really cool. I knew and I know that the Sasquatch are here listening to us, and they, whenever you, like the Pontier, they're there when you start talking about them. They tune in, and the Sasquatch always know when people, they always watch YouTube. They know what's going on. But it was kind of a thrilling thing to do a high five in my dream time while I'm wide awake. Okay, then I heard a rock be thrown at my window. As soon as this little show was over, a rock thrown at my window. So I go, oh, it's like, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I got up and I walked outside, and it wasn't a rock. It was a big cicada, right? And it just had hit the window. I thought, well, that's really cool. But why did the Sasquatch, why did they want me to go outside? So we got outside and I looked up, and there was this UFO above us, right? And I'm going, holy mackerel. So the UFO was up there, and I watched it. It was really amazing. It was like lower than the airplanes, than the airplanes flying, but it was still pretty far up there. And it was flying in and out of the clouds. It flew in, and the clouds were real wispy, so I could actually see it flying through the clouds. Just when it got right over my head, it flew into this real wispy cloud and just disappeared.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, that's amazing, right? So now I've got this Sasquatch that was, in the 3 different year time span. I'm 2019. It was done in 2017, and the guy was talking about the story in 2012. So it's got 3 different timelines, and the Sasquatch, when he knows that I'm watching this thing, and the ET knew I'm watching this thing. Okay. And then I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And the next day I went out to go walk around the block for my cigarette, and out of the tree where the Sasquatch, they give you little gifts, this live squirrel fell out of the tree and went splat like that on the sidewalk, on the edge of the the road right there. And the squirrel was looking around like, what happened? Have you ever heard of a squirrel falling out of a tree? It just doesn't happen. This poor squirrel was looking around. He didn't know what was going on. And but that was a Sasquatch who lived close to me. They had seen it. So now you got this guy, the Sasquatch that was living somewhere, I don't even know where the story was, in 2012, connected to me in 2019, and is being told on the air in 2017, and then in real time and then the ETs were recognizing that this was happening, and then then they let me know by dropping a scroll on me. But that's interesting. That tree that happens. It's so far I've had that tree just right, which is 3 doors down from me. I've had a dead squirrel. Where I walk underneath this tree. I call it Archie because it's one of those big southern oaks that goes all the way across the street. I call it Archie. So I've had a dead squirrel given to me, where I walked past the Archie about 10 paces, and I finished. It's time to turn around and go back. And as I come back, right where I was walking is this dead squirrel. So it's not like this. I don't know how that happened, because squirrels, a dead squirrel in the middle of the road is pretty easy to see. I wouldn't have missed it the other way. So really, literally in 10 steps, they did that to me. Okay, then the next time, the next time was that one, the live one. And then the live one. Yeah. And then that in that same tree, something else was happening. Something else. I was connected with a Sasquatch real strong. And I was just walking along that same street, except I was on the same road, which is a little 2-lane, neighborhood road. I was on the right-hand side this time, and from waist high, a rat fell out of the sky. From waist high, a rat fell out of the sky. And it didn't know which way to run, so if it thought I was a tree, it started running towards me, and I was just jumping around. When a rat tries to run at your leg. But that was pretty cool. there was actually four of them. It was another live. It was a live one. I forget how that other one. So one dead one live one that fell out of the tree, and one rat. There was four from that tree. Yeah, and that's to let me know that they see through our eyes, or they are aware of their friends that they're connected to. They're just, and it's all connected. The ETs, the Star Nations, you know, it's just to let you know it's that they're there all the time.
Yeah. So I guess this, we don't want, at the risk of boring the audience, I guess I'll tell, this is for Otter, because he wants to hear some of these stories, right? He can hear them later. So good news, I pretty much finished my book now.
Oh, good.
I just got to finish the editing and make sure the pictures all line up. And it's hard for a perfectionist to write a book. No, it really is. Because it's never good, you know what I mean? There's always something better with it. But anyway, this is not, a story. My favorite stories are probably of the teachings and stuff and, stuff like that. But this is I guess Beans don't want to hear this one. I'm actually telling what he hasn't heard before. But, they're my favorite. Well, I can't say favorite because they're all so valid and beautiful. But this is a good story talking about the Sasquatch people's love and compassion, because they're so loyal to their family. They really are compassionate to those who they connect with. I mean, I recently had a near heart attack, and they were with me through the operation and whatever, and doing their magic and stuff too. So they numerous examples of where they take care of their people, whatever, and of course, as being healers, they've got evolved medicine or whatever, so they can facilitate that. But anyway, I got off track. So anyway, so this is actually the last story I just put together for the book. So I had a blue heron drum, which I love, and the Sasquatch people, native drum, and the Sasquatch people love it because I go out there and I honor them and play music and make up songs about them, and they just absolutely love it because it's high energy, it's innocent, it's childlike kind of thing, and they love all that stuff, and it's honoring. So I was on a camping trip and I lost it. I left it behind. I lost it, and there's some really good lessons in this story. The one lesson is even though it felt like an extension of me, it's still a material thing in a sense. So I didn't have that much trouble letting it go, which is a good lesson, right? When something that valuable to you, if you can let it go, that's a good life lesson. So I accepted that it was gone. But it wasn't the end of the story, because about 2 months later, I was ordering another drum for a friend from the guy who made my drum. And he said, when I was talking to him, he said, "Did you end up losing your blue heron drum?" I said, "Well, yes, I did." And he said, "Well, somebody contacted me because they read my name on the back of it." So I got in touch with these people, went and got my drum, and it's great. I got my drum, and Sue and I decided, well, let's go to the woods, because that's where we like to go. That's where we like to hang out. So we went to the woods, and we walked out on this pier overlooking a beautiful lake. And we were just sitting there relaxing and stretched out. And then Sue said, "Oh, go back to the car and get your drum." It was just a short walk up to the parking lot. And I did, and I'm walking along and I'm beating on it, and I'm making up an impromptu, spontaneous song about "I love you and thank you for the universe for the synchronicity, bringing my drum back. Thank you, Sasquatch people," all that kind of stuff. And as I got back to the pier and sat down with Sue, I'm beating on it lightly. All of a sudden we heard, "Woo, woo, woo, woo." It was an owl, right? Call. Just as soon as I'm beating it. And Sue said, "I don't think that's an owl." And I said, Oh, I don't know, Sue. It's because, discernment. And I know that they can shapeshift and imitate and do all that stuff with animals. That's just a fact. But I thought, okay, I thought it was an owl, but Sue didn't think it was for some reason. And so we're beating away, and we heard about 2 or 3 more calls. And then Sue said something that doesn't sound ridiculous in the retelling. I'm not putting you to sleep, am I?
Nope. I'm watching images as you speak, actually.
Oh, okay.
And so that's
excellent. So
you provide the audio, I'm watching the video.
Oh, awesome. So that's cool. So where was I? Yeah, so she said something after about the 3rd owl call. She said something that doesn't sound ridiculous, but it is absolutely ridiculous, because she said, that they can imitate owls, don't you? Well, to me, to us, with our experience, that's like saying, well, water is wet, don't you? You know what I mean? It was kind of dumb, because it's,
so obvious, right?
Yeah, so obvious. But as soon as she said that, we heard what sounded like about 12 individuals. And by the way, the lake was, I'm getting energy, like lighting me right up. The lake was kind of still, and there was mist coming off it. It was kind of mysterious and magical and supernatural looking. As soon as she said, they can imitate owls, don't you? We had these calls from, it sounded like about 12 Sasquatch individuals, like, whoa, 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 yeah, whoa, 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 singing, yelling, screaming, grunting, every noise you could think of, like, just like enthusiastic, like this big celebration that went on for about 15 seconds. And we just stood there, and it was like, oh my God, like that was the king of vocalizations. Like they were really like celebrating that I got my drum back, but there was more to it too. And it was, like I said, there were yells, whoops, screams, grunts, talking, every kind of vocalization you could think of. And it was really loud. And we just stood there and like, oh my God. And so I realized that they were very, very happy I got my drum back, and they were celebrating that. And also probably confirming that, we can imitate owls. So there's that too. But the other thing is that Sue just recently, it might have even been that day, but within days, she had said, I really miss their vocalizations. I haven't heard them for so long. And so she sure heard them that day. So there was a bunch of stuff going on there, but it was just like that. Sue, it was so amazing. It was just like, it reminded me of the enthusiasm of, try to imagine some castaways, right? On a desert island, and suddenly a plane or a boat comes by, and they're all like yelling and waving their arms and screaming and hey, like that kind of thing. That's what it sounded like. So. And it's just so supernatural kind of too, when you hear stuff like that. I mean, it never gets old, even though, I've experienced that kind of stuff. It just still never gets old, because it was just like, oh my God. It's almost like you're in another dimension or something.
Yeah. I hear that. And it's just such a rare treat to hear them be so exuberant.
Oh my God. It was like they were over the top, like, like just crazy. So tell me, now we're all interested. You had your eyes closed, and you were watching the movie or whatever. So what did you say?
Well, anytime that I talk to somebody and they're describing something, they provide the audio, and I always watch the video. Some people send a lot clearer images than others, and some people have all kinds of multiple imagery around them or around a situation. And so I will frequently pick up on something that isn't being verbalized, but is still part of the scene. And so when you talked about all of the Sasquatch being suddenly so exuberant, somebody on my end said that they were listening in on your part of the conversation and just tossing in their 2 cents worth from whatever part of the environment, the lake, the trees, the whole situation that they were in. And so when I was watching, I was literally seeing the locations across the lake and on this side of the lake and over by the pine tree and down the hill that they were responding from. And that's what was giving me kind of a chuckle. When I watch things in an environment and it's not being verbalized out loud, but somebody's just projecting images, then it's a little bit different. It's kind of like being allowed to see through the eyes of another. And you know that the Sasquatch can do that with animals.
Oh,
they can
absolutely.
choose a bird or a fox or someone else and borrow their eyes to investigate a scene so that they don't have to go there.
Yes.
And we've known about that, but I was also picturing a situation that we'd been in up at the Psychic Sasquatch conference up in Chihuahua when it was first held, and it was I wanted so much to see the Sasquatch kids. Hang on just a second, I've got a cough here. I apologize if you're hearing some weird vibrating noise in the background. I can hear it, but there's some road grader very close by trying to do something.
That's an organic show, whatever happens.
Yes, okay. And so on the very last day of our interaction at the Sasquatch conference, I woke up with a dream, and the kids had all climbed up tall into the tall pine trees overlooking the parking lot in the whole valley area that most of the campers were in. And I woke up saying out loud, "They're in the trees, they're in the trees." And then suddenly all the kids started laughing. And just the very fact that I picked up on what they had said or where they were was kind of a game between us. It's interesting. I have some unusual Sasquatch stories that have come to us via others. One that came to mind when you were talking about the string stood out. And I have another Brian that I met, and he is a geologist for a large energy company and was up in the high country in Idaho or Montana, one of the two, looking and surveying a new area. And he was with another geologist, and both of them had been hiking up into a pretty high alpine area. And Brian, my friend, knew to watch for Sasquatch sign. Well, he'd seen a few structures and walked into a shaded area, and in front of him was something he'd never seen before, and he stopped up short. There was a 10-foot by 10-foot area where the pine boughs had been woven together, and all of the softest, youngest fur at the tips of the branches were all sticking up. And in this 10-foot by 10-foot area that was flat on the ground and raised up just a little, in one corner was a curled up string, and in another corner was a curled up shoelace. And the other geologist with my friend Brian looked at this thing and climbed on top of it and said, "What do you think this is?" And Brian said, "You better get off of that right now. And we need to leave." And the other geologist said, "Well, why?" "I'll tell you as we're heading down the path, but we need to go now," because he could sense the tension building up in the Sasquatch who had been observing. So he apologized to the Sasquatch mentally and took his geologist friend, and they headed on their merry way. And he said, "I think what we just encountered was a Sasquatch baby bed, a place to lay an infant right after they're newborn, with the softest tips of the pine trees, cradling them. And the string in each corner were toys." And the other geologist went, "Nah, you and your Sasquatch." And he went home. And the two of them met up the next day because they needed to go back. And he turned to Brian when they got into the truck and said, "I've thought, and I was up all night thinking about that woven 10 by 10 foot structure and where it was and how high it was and how remote it was. And I came to the conclusion that I think you're right. I could come up with no better explanation for that woven structure and its purpose than what you stated. And if it's all right, I'd like to ask you some more questions about the Sasquatch." And he started to learn. I remember.
That's very important. That's very key.
Yes.
That
yes.
whole thing that he started
to learn.
Yes.
After the very first Sasquatch conference, by the way, we had been instructed to go to the Psychic Sasquatch conference by our extraterrestrial friends. And they nudged us and, in fact, contacted us one day in the spring, that first year that the conference was held up in Chewelah, Washington. And they nudged me to get on the internet. They wanted to show me something. And I said, "Oh, okay," because that was not an unusual request for them to want me to type in something because they wanted to show me something. And when I said, "What do you want me to type out and what do you need to show me?" They spelled out Kuwani lapsaritis. That's not an easy spelling. And we'd only met Kuwani once. And so I didn't remember how to spell his name exactly. But it was the day after they had first put out the advertisement for the conference. And the Ponte who had asked us to look it up said, "We wish you to go to this to teach." And that was the place that we tried the very first Telepathy 101 primer, basic information, was to teach it at that conference. When I went home that year, we hadn't been home 10 days. And suddenly we had a Sasquatch show up one Sunday morning, right after dawn, and at our house in town. And I'm going, "Who is this and what's going on?" And it was the leader of the local clan. And he had one request. And he said, "Would you please draw us as we see each other instead of as monsters?"
Beautiful.
And that's what started my artwork about the Sasquatch, was Ma'aluk, the local clan leader, coming and requesting. And I said, "You send me anybody and we'll draw them and we'll get it right. But I don't care if they're young, old, if they're local, if they're not. They don't have to come in person if they want to telepathically contact me. But if you want me to illustrate them, They get to choose their pose. They get to choose their emotional expression. They get to pick. If it was a child, usually I would have to talk to the mom or the dad. And in fact, we had a mom bring a 2-year-old toddler to our house. And the toddler was, probably the size of our average 4.5-year-old, 5 maybe. And tall, but gangly and all over the place, just like 2-year-olds always are. Climbed up into my lap, put their arms around my neck for all of somewhere between 10 and 30 seconds, climbed down and wanted to go find something to eat in the garden. And that was my experience. But we've had a chance to learn more about the Sasquatch by illustrating them as they see each other. And again, whether it was in person or telepathic, didn't matter to me as long as we could get it right. But in the course of drawing someone, there's always a little chit chat back and forth. And so we learned in the course of doing that, everything from at what age do they teach their kids about astronomy, herbalism, what is it that they teach their kids, and how do they go about that? How do they come up with their names? Are they given at birth? Are they adopted later? Are they chosen by the individual? It was a golden opportunity for us to learn more about their culture. And between that and observing their artwork, what they do with rocks and how they construct structures with trees, and little things like carefully woven baby beds, it taught us about them.
So what do they teach their children? What's the focus of their teaching when they're teaching their children?
Elders are to be respected and helped first and foremost. The kids don't eat first, the elders eat first if there is food to share. And they teach kids everything from the other woodmen, the others who reside in the forest along with them, to we got a lot of understanding about the kids and what they're taught about us Earth humans, because the kids, when we are around, are taught to go silent and to hunker down and hide and not move and not say anything. And that they are unfortunately taught that most of us are dangerous. And so that's one of the reasons that they, whenever we approach, hunker down and remain silent. But they're kids. Every once in a while, they just forget or make a peep when they don't mean to. And so they get caught every once in a while by us. Or they'll be climbing up into the nest up in a tree and miss a branch and make a noise or drop something. But they're also taught that they can observe us, usually from afar. And it's oftentimes the kids and the teenagers that'll pick up a pebble and toss it at you.
Yeah.
Just to get a rise out of you, just to see if you're paying attention, just to see, are you going to play back?
Or to say, hi, we're here, if they're friends of them. Yeah.
But the tossing of a pebble is, so how dumb are these Earth humans? And by the way, they don't call us Earth humans. They have various names for us. the noisy ones, the messy ones, hairheads. I mean, they have a variety of things that they call us.
Yeah.
But there he is. The Otter Man walked into the room very quietly here.
We've been telling them stories for you, Otter.
We're telling stories. You want to tell stories with us? Oh dear.
Hey, let me ask you.
That's okay.
And
You guys have fun.
I mean, I've got my own ideas, my own ideas on this, but I want to hear what you have to say about it. Hey, how you doing? I have my own ideas on it, but I want to hear your take on it. What is it about certain humans that they find that they can trust and that they want to connect with? What are the factors behind that?
What are the factors behind Sasquatch trusting us? Did you need to say
Yeah, or
something,
teaching
Mike?
us, or taking,
What?
What are the factors
or
behind the Sasquatch trusting us?
or teaching us, taking us under their wing,
Or taking us under their
family.
wing, or trusting,
Well,
teaching.
I think our relationship with the Ponte is what brought them on because of theirs.
For us, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first thing that we always let the Sasquatch know. We would introduce ourselves and we would say, we were taught to speak with you telepathically by our friends, the Ponte, so that they would know how we knew to communicate with them in that way.
Well, and then Radar showed up with TA.
Yes, and that was the other in that we had is one of our Ponte friends who was just a cut up was there at the birth of a young Sasquatch boy and watched him grow from newborn into he's 21 now and well over 10 feet tall. And so they became best buddies and played together. And we
You've got a
learned,
picture of that, don't you? A painting of that.
we do. I have several pictures. We know when Kie's birthday is, and so every year, the day or the week of his birthday, I contact him and say, we need to do an updated portrait. What do you
Yeah.
want to do this year?
I remember that portrait from last show we did. Wasn't the Pontes on the Sasquatch's shoulder or something, or was it something like that?
Yep. When Kie showed up last December for the first draft of his portrait, the first draft he was picking his nose. And I said, I don't think that's going to do. And I don't think that's going to fly. So we did get a better one. But that was the first amusing part of it. And that's the other thing is the first time I realized that not only were we dealing with adults, but we were also dealing with kids. I really racked my brain to come up with toys or universal joys to share with the Sasquatch kids. What do we have in our world that's so much of a universal joy that we could share it with Sasquatch kids? They would think it was great too, and their parents wouldn't mind. And so I had to come up with what causes joy across species other than food. Okay, sweets often do, chocolate. But if you had to say what causes joy across species, what would you come up with?
Maybe a squeaky toy.
There you go.
You know?
We came up with soap balls. We came up with soap bubbles. And the reason we did was because we knew that if we blew soap bubbles, dogs would chase after them and snap at them and think that they were having a good time. Okay. So it crossed canine earth-human boundaries for joy. And if it crossed that boundary, then likely it would cross Sasquatch boundaries. And we also knew that in some fashion, in a way that we're not sure if we understand it fully, we could connect Sasquatch with orbs too.
Yes.
All right. So we
Definitely.
took bubble stuff up with us to Chewela, Washington, and I literally said to the kids, if I'm crossing the parking lot and I hear any one of you say the word bubbles, I will go get the bubble stuff and we'll blow bubbles for you. And if you want to chase them, you can. And so we ended up one evening blowing bubbles well after dark. And our paranormal photographer friend, Darrell Stokes, snapped pictures that have both orbs and bubbles in the same shot. And that was fun.
You know what? That was kind of interesting because I don't even know if Daryl, I'm sorry.
Darrell.
Daryl. Yeah, I met him at one of the, I don't even know if he knew Ari's name, but he took a picture of me and Ari was standing right beside me. You could see and he said, there's your friend Ari. But I don't know if he knew Ari's name before we mentioned it.
Didn't come from us. So
I can't remember, but anyway, and he was standing right there. You could see his aura. More. It was more like an aura in a shape. But you know, when I wish that I had known you better when I saw you once at the gathering, but I didn't really know you guys, so we never really got a chance to talk or whatever.
No, I know it. There were lots of different camp tent areas that people were congregating at after dark to swap stories, and we always had the coffee on or tea or snacks, and people would just I learned a long time ago, if you want the people to come sit at your camp, you bring extra chairs and you have them set up in a circle. And because people don't want to schlep a chair from point A to point B, anybody who's got their hands free but is tired and sees your free chairs and comes over to plop themselves down. And so we would get the early morning first wake up stories and people talking about their dreams, as well as the late into the night stories as people are relaxing and sharing things that they haven't shared with others because of judgment and other stuff. So I found the people and the stories sharing at that conference to be more valuable than the classroom stuff.
Like I say, I wish I had partaken in some of that, but so many people there, and you just But maybe we'll have a chance another time. So did you do know? I mean, well, I showed you. Arla Colette. She's got. She made me a shirt, tie-dye shirt with Terrell on it. Pretty cool, eh?
I thought it was great. I thought it was a good use of that image, and I thought that doing the spiral around was in the rainbow of colors was very apropos. Yes. So very nice.
So when you were working with Ari, he was he was a character, right?
That's a statement and a half. Oh my gosh. I would come up with one idea for a sketch, and before I even got that one done, he was off onto another idea. And before we got that one done, he was off onto another idea. How many starts did we come up with, and how many end result products did we find? Half a dozen, something like that. Yeah. I found one more here that I'd forgotten about, and it was stored in a portfolio. So I have one more left I can show you.
Yeah. But he's got a very dry sense of humor, right?
Oh Lordy, droll, punny, word plays, and
exactly. Intelligent and very and so loving. But anyway, what were you going to say?
But a cut up. And so he loved it when people would poke back. If it wasn't just one-sided, and how if you slip in a one-liner, you wonder who's going to notice. Well, not only did we notice, we just dished it right back at him, and he thought that was marvelous. And so we had a very good time when he was here. Not just me, but Otter as well. And he Ari would show up and Otter would nudge me and go, "What's his face is here again."
What's his face?
And of course he knew his name, but we just always have a very good time with anybody else who shows up.
Yeah, as long as the fun is coming from the heart.
Oh yeah,
they love
right-minded.
it. They love it. You know, he would love what's his face. He would laugh at. He would just start laughing at that. I just know that. So the Terrell image he was saying was me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was quite that just fascinated me, because at first you didn't understand what he was talking about, right? You were saying brother, and you thought like brother, like we're all brothers and connected. Mm-hmm. Literally meant his brother.
Yes. His brother. And here's the weird part is sometimes when people look at past lives or other connections, they think they only have one. But every once in a while, we have such a good time interacting with another individual that we choose to do that in many different guises over many different years, eras, epochs, lifetimes, if you will. And so the how are you connected this time question was partially explained, and how have you been connected to Ari in the past was also partially explained. I don't think we got the full story.
Can you go into that a little bit? Not just for me, but because it's, I think it's interesting to the audience too.
All right. When I chit-chat somebody up when I'm doing their portrait, I do it, one, to put them at ease, and two, to help include them in on the process.
You know what? Ari's at ease as soon as he gets there. Like he's ready to. Oh, there he is. He's
just ready to go.
He's with me right now.
Yeah, and ready to speak and ready to kibitz and listening in and participating in the whole shebang.
Wow, he's here right now. Do you feel him?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I'm sorry for interrupting.
So no, you're fine. But whenever I chat somebody up, I try to put them at ease and include them in just like we'd been friends for a long time.
Of course.
And so whenever he would show up, of course, you came up in conversation. And we talked about the stone face that you have a photo of, and about the faces in the landscape, and about the connections with others in history. And then you came up again as others connected through history. And I went, okay, but I was waiting for him to elaborate more. And it wasn't until when he used the concept of brother, it was multi-layered in its meaning. You know how you can be punny and use a wordplay and purposefully have a double entendre, something with more than one meaning.
Well, brother is one of those words that
exactly
naturally people understand can mean a lot of different things.
Yes, and that was part of it.
Be a big picture thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what he wanted me to understand was that the interaction that the two of you have hasn't always been Sasquatch to Earth human. It hasn't always been that way.
No.
And it's been more equal, not like twins have a camaraderie, not quite that close, but more like big brother, little brother, or like cousins would have that palled around together. The parents would be off doing their thing, or the adults and the kids would get to know each other. And the play that happened and interacted, and the teaching that a big brother does to a little brother. All of that all kind of came rolled into one big ball one afternoon as I was sketching. And so I put down the sketch of Ari and picked up another blank sheet of paper or sketch pad and said, show me. And that's when we started understanding more the other connection as brother, but not earth human brother. And I just let it be for a while, making sure that the concept repeated. If somebody tells me something once, I'll remember it. But if they tell it to me again, I know they're trying to emphasize it for a reason. And they're trying to solidify it in my head. And when somebody repeats a concept a second time, it helps me understand, oh, maybe I did get it right the first time. Maybe I did understand them right. Okay, then. All right, let's keep going. And that's how things kind of came about, of connections through time and through different eras. I kind of got the idea from Ari that remembering previous incarnations was not an issue. That was new too. I didn't know that piece. But the idea
And specifically for the Sasquatch, you mean? That they can remember
for him. Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
It does. It did to me too after I thought about it, because if you're a telepathic nation, then your connection to the collective consciousness is stronger on a regular old daily, everyday decision-making basis.
Well, it's
ours
also
would be.
It's also, I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's also the now, the past, and the future are all in
all at once.
So
right.
that would there I go again, just confirming it. Oh boy, is he confirming it. So that means that he obviously would understand that, because there is no past and future.
Right. When we say past lives, we're thinking in linear time instead of all time occurring at once. When they say brothers, he meant brothers through time in a literal and figurative sense. And that's what I had to have him explain. So that was a new piece that I was not aware of, and that brought me to the understanding in his explanation that all time happening at once is part and parcel of the perceptions of being a multidimensional being.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it can be any other way when you really think about it.
When you think about it, but it didn't dawn on me because we'd never gone there before with anybody.
Yeah.
And understanding how they view life, the universe, and everything is something that we're just now putting together through our observations, through dozens of researchers and people who have dedicated their time in trying to understand and share freely pieces of the puzzle of what are these people like? What's their culture like? What do they honor? What do they love? What do they not love? And learning about all of that has come through the repeat interaction that some very special earth humans who put down their fear and decided it's important to learn about these peoples as a culture and get to know them as friends, relatives.
Yeah.
You know, this is a great teaching, and I just wanted to add my 2 cents in here because when you're talking about multiple lives being experienced in the now, and there's a river, but the rivers can be seen. You know, what I mean, the river of time can be seen, and after I had this like introduction to them, I didn't even know it was a Sasquatch who sent the rocks to me. They sent me over to talk to the rocks. But after that, they spent and I was trying to find out, well, how could the Sasquatch, over a phone call that I had with somebody who was friends with the Sasquatch, how could all this come about? And which was a separate question. My first question was, what's the deal with this mind speaker talking to plants and stuff? And that's what they gave me the vision for. But they spent 2 years working with me non-verbally, just with feelings, and kind of poking me to go look at this, pay attention to this video that you're watching, or put two and two together about that, quantum physics or something or other. But they were teaching me about the all one and no space. And they said that they live in no space.
Good phrase. That's the first I've heard that phrase, but it sure makes sense.
No space means there's no space between me and you.
Right.
But we perceive it as I'm here in Savannah and I'm talking to my computer screen, right? And the computer, from the inside the computer screen, goes all the way across the nation to your computer screen, and that's a space. And then you have a space between your computer screen and you, right? Well, that's the reality of space. But no space is not like that. There is no space, and when there's no space, that means it takes no time to go from there's no time from point A to point B. From me to you, there is no time. So, and the all one, we all kind of know we're kind of comfortable with the idea of the all one. We're all one. But when you put it into terms of no space, this is why some Sasquatch can live for thousands of years, and some Sasquatch just live a regular 60 or 80 years, or is because how much time they spend in no space. And that's where they go, and they go invisible, or where they go into a portal, they go into no space. And that's just a great teaching. I mean, and you're describing this teaching of no space and no time, right? But yet the relationship is still there. We had this lady on.
Go ahead.
We had this lady on, Jenny Jablonski, and I was talking to her on the phone, after we had her on the show, and I was just like, we were talking about different things, and I just asked her, well, how many lifetimes do you remember? And like that, she said 7.2 million.
Whoa.
Which is a good whoa. That's exactly what I said, whoa. Because like I vaguely remember some kind of like imagey, bunch of lifetimes. I've known I've been in the thousands maybe. I remember something in China and something in Egypt and something in Africa, but they're not like razor sharp. She just like that said, 7.2 million. But that's also in the now, this had the multiple lifetimes, parallel time, all that that's part of the information that we need to build a foundation of who we are.
Yeah. I love that RE taught you that lesson about how they understand.
So grateful,
because that when they're working with you, like I'm writing my book. Actually, I guess I'm done it now, other than edit. They are guiding what I'm writing. I mean, some of the stuff that I've written in there it has to be from them, because it's so like out there, and yet it's also not only out there, it makes perfect sense. And that's one of the big lessons that they taught me, is that we do, in a sense, live all our incarnations and everything simultaneously, because there is only the now moment. So that is exactly why, like we said, to reiterate, why they would understand that thing about all their past incarnations. And the fact that he told you that makes me so happy.
Yeah, it dovetailed with the translation the Ponte gave us for their phrase for telepathy. And if you translate it literally, it means infinite voice, voice that goes infinite through time and space, has no limits, infinite voice, like infinity symbol. And that's one of the reasons that they asked us to put the infinity symbol on the cover of our book, Inviting ET, with the word friendship beneath it, so that the concept of infinite friendship was being put forth by the Ponte to us. It was a very nonverbal, very generous gesture, but infinite voice fits right in with ripples of understanding that transcend linear time and kind of ripple out like a pebble tossed into a pond.
Well, this is so important. I mean, seriously important. When it goes back to that thing that I posted today about, you know, you're the God that you create, and if people need these foundational understandings, when I said that who we are is the content of our consciousness, and a lot of that content is not us. It's imported language, imported social conditioning, imported morals, imported views on God, views on the world. All that stuff is imported. And the important thing about being able to recognize and take control of the content of your consciousness is because that content of your consciousness can either expand you into your multidimensional self, or it can retard you to I am only this and I can only do that, and here's who I am, and these definitions, right? So you can't actually hear the infinite voice or feel. You can't feel the ant that's crawling on the backside of Mars.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? We have the ability, we're that finely tuned that a million years ago there was an ant walking on Mars, and we can remote view that. So that means we're connected to that. So that's this whole thing about clearing and cleaning and emotional healing and all that kind of stuff, or the raising your vibrations through shamanic practices or spiritual practices that bring up your vibration. All this stuff helps, or practicing remote viewing, or practicing telepathy. These things are critically important, because at some point we're going to back out and see all of our lifetimes. And one of the things we don't want in your house is to see 1,000 lifetimes of darkness, you know what I mean? Or of pain, or repeating patterns of war and suffering and war and poverty, the suffering and war. You know what I mean? That's like, as a creator being, it's kind of embarrassing.
I tell you what, I've apologized for our behavior to Star Nations, to Sasquatch, to individuals I know and individuals I don't know, and had to be very humble when they say, why did you do this? Even if it wasn't me, myself directly, my people, the earth humans, did it. And we would have to answer for why on earth our fellow earth humans would do X, Y, or Z. What was the reason that was so important that they bypassed the concept of, and it would hurt others in the future or the now, and having to apologize for our people, having to explain as best I could to somebody who kept shaking their heads. It is embarrassing. It is.
Like, what was I thinking? Where was I? How come I let this stuff happen.
Hmm.
And I think a wake up call now is that you can have the future proves the past. You can change the present, which in the future will change the past. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where we need to be, is to be conscious enough to say, well, listen, we can't live in this kind of a form of a dysfunctional government, and then it's caused by a dysfunctional family.
You know, I say this often, but I sincerely mean it this time. This has been one of my, and hopefully we're not quite done yet, but this is one of my favorite shows we've ever done. There's just so many amazing points being made, and good fellowship and friendship too.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
family kind of gathering.
Yeah, it's like talking around the campfire over a cup of coffee and saying, so what's your best story? Or what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? Or what's the most hilarious thing that you never expected to happen?
I don't
And to hear the responses is just truly joyful.
I don't think any of us could say our best story or most of, because we've all had so many. I could just tell the one I got on my
On
head.
and on and on. Yeah.
You know, like it depends on which direction you want to go, right? But you know, I'm so grateful with Ari, how he connected to me and he interacts, and here he is again, and how he connects with the people I'm talking to or whatever.
Mhm.
It's such a feeling of love and joy, and I can't even explain it. It's like it's just a privilege to be connected to somebody like that reaches out to other people because he sees the goodness in them, and the ability to teach them or whatever. It's just like it just never ceases to amaze me.
I like it too, because when we adopt somebody into our tribe, into our circle of friends, into the people that we know and trust, that we can be ourselves and not blink an eye that we're going to be judged or poo-pooed or told that we're a little bit on the crazy side, and or asked if we've had our schizophrenia meds today. You know, when you're around people that understand what you're talking about or are willing to be open enough to learn on the spot something just tremendously different from their own everyday world, but yet because it's coming from you and they trust you,
Yeah.
that they take it in stride and start asking intelligent questions. That kind of sharing is precious, absolutely precious. And it's that kind of depth of sharing that helps us all become a little wiser.
Yeah.
And that wisdom can be funny, it can be poignant, it can be sad, it can be happy, but the sharing that goes on of your own personal life experience in an open way hopefully helps other people not have to go through it themselves.
Yeah.
Now, some people are personality types, they got to do it the hard way anyway, but at least they've heard another perspective. And whenever they end up deciding, all right, do I have to do it the hard way? The memory of that conversation hopefully will come back to them.
Well, the thing I appreciate about you and Otter and Beans and myself and whatever is that if you are representing Ponte or the Sasquatch or something, you're really doing them a disservice if you try to filter stuff out based on believability or you really just really have to tell it as it is. There's just no other way to do it. And if
Just
people don't
blurt
believe it, that's not the important thing. It's who does believe it. But the truth is the important thing, because I don't know. I just can't, I could never water stuff down based on ego or what people believe me or take me seriously or whatever. Well, ego is something that doesn't exist in the fifth kind of dimension anyway. It's another thing, but you know what I mean. But to be forthright and to not hold anything back is the only way that you can talk about these things. And
sometimes you have to take what you've been given, even if you don't understand it fully and completely yourself, and say, well, I don't understand it all yet, but this is what I was told. Sometimes the next teacher down the line is exactly who you're talking to next, who then fills in those blanks. And you sit back and go, oh, why didn't I think of that? You're right, of course.
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way, but you're right.
You know what adds, sorry. You know what adds so much validity to this is the fact that, and validity and confirmation and whatever is so important for people who are sharing things like this, is the fact that RB taught you that thing about he understands all his incarnations or whatever, because that is one of the big, I'm writing about it in my book. That's one of the big lessons that he's taught me. And for him to share that with you just makes it all more real. And that
it validates what he told you, right?
I'm lighting up this whole interview. But
sometimes they do. I find that when they really want you to understand a point, they'll tell it to somebody else who will come back and tell you,
yes,
yeah, you and I talked about this. You did? Oh, good. It's not just me. And it helps solidify the things that are so out there that you're just not sure if you got it right. You think so, but having the validation from somebody else makes the world of difference.
Yeah,
that's the world of difference.
That's what we do on this show. That's why I think our show is so important, is because we just put it all out there and it validates people who are too scared or think, oh, I'm crazy or something, or this couldn't be real. But when you validate what they said on these cutting edge kind of learning topics or whatever, really, it makes it more real for them and they feel more comfortable moving forward with it, right?
We tell people that sometimes you'll pick up something and you're not sure that you understand it at all. But if you can suspend your judgment about it and just say, well, I don't get all this, but let me just put this up on the shelf here and I'll keep an eye on it and maybe it'll make sense tomorrow or next week or next month. And trust that what you got was accurate, even if you don't understand it all at the time. And we find that suspending the need to understand everything about a topic immediately right then helps us know that we don't have to learn everything all in one sitting, and that we don't have to understand complex concepts immediately, that sometimes it has to percolate on down for a while and we have to sleep on it for a bit before we wake up and know, oh, and it kind of gelled inside of you overnight and solidified. That whole learning process of the next piece has to make total sense before I'm going to understand it's part of the whole. We've just put that on a shelf for the moment to say, no, we don't have the lock on learning everything and or knowing everything. There's a lot of things that if we're just humble enough, they're happy to teach about. And we just have to stay open to the idea that the learning process might be different than what we had when we went through school.
I love this conversation. This
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why I signed up for the Pork and Bean Show, just to play around and not be researchers or investigators or students or whatever. It's because we want to contact and interact with people that are friends. They're friends with the Star people, or they're friends with the Sasquatch people, and then the Sasquatch, then their life is nourished and guided and expanded and evolved just by the mere presence of being friends. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
rubs off. Things happen, understandings,
Mhm.
wider acceptance, a deeper compassion, or a thirst to know more. That's really miraculous kind of stuff, and it goes on. It goes on in the near-death experience people, the ET people. It goes on with the Sasquatch people, and the all kind of investigating kind of stuff. But to be the friends of friends, Sasquatch is all about relationship, friends of friends, and um, that's where I think we're headed. I think the Star Nations really want to set up camp here. They want to set boot camps and universities and healing centers, and they're just waiting for us to ripen.
They are. That's a good way to say it. Waiting for us to get to that just right stage.
Yeah.
And we hope that we get there before the Melibehest that's going to happen in our solar system happens. But we're here. You're here with your show. We're here with what we do, trying to share without editing what it is that we are being taught so that it doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
And the Sasquatch are excellent teachers. Our ET friends are excellent teachers. And I count myself as not only blessed but lucky that we answered back when the call came in and didn't ignore it. And I think the ability to set aside our fears and answer back is part of the key. When you're ready to learn, you have to take a step beyond what you know and are completely comfortable with sometimes. But when you trust that if you do, that you'll be rewarded with something beyond what you expected, that makes it worthwhile. I used to make quilts for sacred ceremonies for the Lakota. They needed big star quilts for all kinds of things, and I taught myself how to make them. But in the process of doing that, there always came the day that I made a major goof, a major mistake. I cut something wrong or I measured something wrong. And I'd sit back with this mess in front of me going, I just want to scrap the whole thing. I feel so frustrated until I learned the phrase sacred course correction. When the unseen world sees what you're doing in a good way and wants to help you even further, sometimes you'll get a sacred course correction in the process of thinking you've done something completely wrong and have messed it up, when in fact, if you put it out there and listen, somebody's going to bring you an answer that's better than your original thought or design. That's an improvement on what you thought you were going to do or make or say. And instead, the sacred course correction takes you a step farther than you expected in a very good way.
Yeah.
And so I just learned that most everything that we do in life comes with sacred course corrections if we trust the universe is right-minded enough to help us, and that we've demonstrated that we want to learn, and that we don't have a lock on the best ideas.
Yeah.
And
You know,
so it's huge and makes life a lot easier on ourselves if we know that if we make a mistake, somebody else out there has got a better idea than what we had. And if we just put it out there and ask, they'll give it to us.
You know, when I'm writing my book or whatever, sometimes I've made mistakes and I've erased stuff by, you know, like big sections or whatever. And I just, oh my God. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. And then when I rewrote it, it was way better. So, you know, that kind of stuff that's exactly what you're talking about. You know, it's sacred correction.
Sacred course corrections.
Yeah.
So instead of beating yourself up, right? And
pertinent ideas that are just so much better than what I was happy with. And I was thinking, okay, I'm done. Oh no. Then we do it and it's completely better. I wanted to give some kind of some hope to people out there, you know, in these times. You know, I mean, everything I've experienced and been taught has told me, like I said, that there is only the now, the past and the future. It's all in the now. So if the Star Nations people who understand that, and abide by that nonlinear time thing, and the Sasquatch understand that and work with me and others through that, if that's true, then just ask yourself, why are they reaching out to us? If they thought that we were not going to come through, here I go again, and something good, light, and beautiful was going to develop from it. If they thought we were doomed and we were just, I was going to get blown up, we were going to, you know, go extinct or whatever, they wouldn't be doing that.
That's right.
So that if anybody out there believes that, then you have to believe that the outcome is eventually going to be good.
The Ponti have told us that they are cultural explorers. They also use the phrase that they are gardeners of intellect. And if you think of a gardener will
water,
try and treat a plant, a living being, a living thing, in such a way as to give it the best things that it needs to grow and flourish and flower and become beautiful. When we ask them about all of these huge changes coming to our sun, to our solar system, to our planet, they told us first that all of these changes are a necessary reset for the health of our star or our planet or our people. And when we thought about that, we realized that they have been asking us questions about the things that we love to do when we're not working, the things that we share with one another, what brings us joy, what brings us tradition and memory, and what makes something special for us. They were asking us about the best parts of our culture because they want to help preserve those parts of what we have come to become, our culture, so that they aren't lost. The things that our planet is facing are not easy things to face. The Sasquatch have been through this cycle multiple times. and they know what to do and where to go and how to remain safe. But for us, with our limited memories, we all have tried to figure out, what do we need to do? And our Ponte friends say that if you make friends in high places, that it makes a difference. And when we asked them what they meant by that, they gave us an analogy, and they said, okay, let's say you have a friend in the town next door, and you talk pretty regularly, but suddenly a tornado comes and levels part of that town, and you can't telephone because the lines are down, and you can't know for sure if your friend in the town next door is okay. If you go to that town, where's the first place that you go?
Check on your friend.
That's right. So do all the other star nations out there. If you make friends with them and the proverbial stuff hits the fan, the first place they go
To take
is
care
to
of their
check
people.
on their friends.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
so
absolutely.
we find that concept reassuring. We know that there is no star nation out there that can save the 7.6 or 7.8 billion of us currently residing on our world. And we aren't the only sentient nation here that the star nations have come to help. And so we're aware that not everybody is going to get a ride off planet if push comes to shove. But we're hoping that the things that the Ponte have suggested to us about helping each other, learning to grow food, finding your tribe, making friends with people of all kinds of skill levels and education levels and historical backgrounds. If people are willing to work together in a good way, then you've got a chance for getting through the melibehest that we're about to see in our solar system. And so you and I have come into this lifetime learning things from other nations that are completely invaluable. And I cannot sit still and not share it with others, because I couldn't in all conscience keep this information that's so important to myself. I couldn't.
No.
I just couldn't. And so when people talk to us about the Sasquatch and the Ponte and the fact that we really have now kind of dedicated our lives to this sharing, and not for money, not for fame, not for fortune, but because our people will need it in the future. Parts of it, nobody will retain all of what you or I have lived through. But if we share enough with others and are open to what we've learned, either in the easy way or the hard way, then maybe somebody else can take that little piece and carry it forward and help somebody else. And
Yeah.
so we're constantly thinking in terms of paying it forward. And if we can do that and teach that concept, then it helps everybody help everybody, if that makes sense.
100%. So, what is your understanding of ancient ones, and how are they different from the regular members of the clan or whatever? What in your mind or from your understanding?
Excuse me.
In referring to the Sasquatch people.
Yes. When I think about the ancient ones and the feel that I get from the other Sasquatch who've talked about them, not from the Earth humans who've talked about them, but from the other Sasquatch who've talked about them. They are talked about with a bit of an awe or reverence, very, very respected by others. When we have chatted with them, most all of the ancients that we have been in conversation with the Sasquatch about, not necessarily with, but about the more round-headed Sasquatch like we have, see the conical-headed ancients as more advanced in their abilities because of the maybe because of the larger brain capacity, but they see the ancient ones as respected elders and teachers. They cherish the idea that an ancient one might take them under their wing and teach them personally. But we hear talk amongst the Sasquatch that are not of the ancient races, that they come to teach groups as much as they come to teach individuals. Are they Sasquatch who have a longer lifespan? I don't know about that. I don't know if it's a longer lifespan or if it is memory of lifetimes through thousands of years. And
like
when
our
they talk about
said, all
yes.
those incarnations at once.
Correct.
That would be an ancient trait, right?
Right. And so I'm not sure that all of the Sasquatch have that ability. I think that they are all telepathic. I haven't interacted with all the nations everywhere, so I'm kind of going on my gut instinct there. But all of the ancients appear to be not only extremely telepathic, but interconnected and knowledgeable about an awful lot of things that are off planet as well as on planet. Do I think that the ancients are well traveled in the galaxy? I suspect so. Their knowledge base seems to include others that we don't usually see on Earth. Do I think that they have a longer lifespan? I think they could. I think that that's certainly possible. I don't know that it's proven. Do they have a wisdom more than most? I think so.
Yeah.
I think that that's a big part of it too. Excuse me.
See, that's what you should be doing, Beans.
Well, you know, that I just wanted to put my 2 cents in here again. For the listeners, you know, you don't very often hear this this term in the history of the world. What's going on now is especially what you're doing is historic. It is the first time in known history that off-world people have come to Earth and they're living on Earth and they're teaching humanity. They're willing to open and teach humanity how to have psychic communication, how to improve their psychic abilities and their mind speak, right? And to me, I just wanted to put that out there because we talk about it. You talk about it as an everyday thing. It's in one way, it is the most everyday thing, but this is historic. It's historic what's happening with both the Sasquatch and the Ponti. And I saw a post today where this guy was saying that there's 57 different races of human-looking ETs that are living and walking among us at this time. So we're in historic times on that level.
Well, I mean, the times of Jesus or whatever, when they were seeing angels and visions and miracles or whatever, was a similar time, but yeah,
they weren't identified as off-worlders, and they weren't identified, and they didn't actually set up schools. This is a school for, what the Ponti is doing is like a teaching, a school, or a workshop. I don't know what you want to call it, but
yeah, this is definitely a step above that. Or, I mean, it's it is, yeah, it's unique in that sense. There's similarities, but no, you're right, it is unique. I agree.
Well, and this is the first time in our recorded history that so many individuals across the planet have picked up the studies of the Telepathy 101 primer, put in the time, learned the suggested protocols for contact, followed them, but also have invited the Ponti by the name of their people, but also by individuals' names. And they recognize them because Ponti came to me and said, "Can you please draw us? You can't take a photograph. We can't provide you with a photograph because of the treaty, but there's nothing that prevents an experiencer from drawing what they experience." And they sent me an art teacher. And so my drawings of them doing various things from the serious to the humorous has allowed other people here on Earth to not only learn about the telepathic communication style that they have, but also how to improve it within themselves and how to invite a star nation, but in the case of the Ponti, invite an individual by name and say, "Hey, Radar, do you want to come play games? I've got my Xbox out. We can do this." Or to talk to their cultural expert on a particular topic. We have a gentleman coming down from Canada to spend a week with us. He's arriving tomorrow, and he's been an experiencer of the Ponti for the last 6-7 years also. And he asked them if they would please begin to teach him some of the tonal languages that our cetaceans, our whales, and our dolphins use. And their language expert said yes and began teaching him. If you want to learn anything from them, ask and have a conversation and share back and forth. You have an opportunity to do that before things get to the Melibeh stage here on our planet.
When you teach your telepathy course,
Mhm.
is the success rate? Everybody who puts the time in and can learn it? Is it anything to master? Or?
Well, all right. So different people can learn it to different degrees of success. It's kind of like saying, if I agree to teach you how to play the piano,
yeah,
you might learn to play chopsticks and that's where you stop, or you might be Mozart. Okay. Mm-hmm. You don't know until you sit down and put your fingers on the keyboard and learn that part, that rudimentary part of it. And so are some people naturally more taking to telepathic communication than others? Yes. But we all have the ability to do it. And I asked our teacher, Tani, how do you know? And she said, well, if you can dream and you know that you dream at night and you can remember some dreams, then you know that you've been in telepathic communication with the collective consciousness. And I went, oh. And it didn't dawn on me that when we dream, we're in communication.
Right.
Because we're in that brain chemistry state that happens when we sleep. And so if you can remember your dreams, you know you can learn telepathic communication. You won't know how far you can take it until you try. And so that's an individual sort of, not any two people are alike.
Yeah.
But to learn this method of communication that so many other nations in this galaxy use is huge.
Well, it's the universal language.
It is, because I don't have to speak the same language as you to telepathically talk to you.
Right.
Because it goes beyond a physical written language barrier or boundary that we perceive. We start to think in terms of images and thoughts. And just like the archaeoplanetography images in the landscape, they can be understood because they go beyond a language barrier.
Yeah. How long is your course?
The Telepathy 101 primer is where we start people, and then we say, find any way you can to practice with feedback for at least 100 days. And when we provide the primer for folks, it literally is a take it at your own pace, because some people want to devour it and go as fast as they can in 2 weeks. And other people are busy with families and jobs and kids and things and health stuff and don't have a chance to take it at that pace. But that doesn't mean that their learning is any less. And so if you can take it and just practice some every day with feedback, then you have a chance to feel what it feels like in your body to be accurate. And that's what you're trying to get a hold of. What's it feel like in your body when Jane Doe down the street talks to you instead of John Smith? Can you identify female versus male? Can you identify somebody you know versus somebody you don't know? And all of those parameters come with practice, and you very slowly improve to the point of not even thinking about it. When I talk to the Ponte telepathically, I don't even have to think about it anymore. I don't have to sit down and go and do an Om meditation. I just instinctively drop into that mode and send out a thought, and know that I'm sending out a thought to a specific individual or individuals at a specific location. And because that's my intent, then because I'm practiced, that's what happens. And how do I know that? Because I get responses back. And so I get validation that either they've understood or they haven't. But if they haven't, then I get a question back. And so the learning back and forth and takes the back and forth for
I'm-
us.
I'm not probably, I don't know if I'm going to phrase this in the right way, but so what are the benefits, or how does it change people's lives when they learn this on, some degree of competency or whatever? What happens to people? How are their lives changed? Do they have more of a connection and awareness, spirituality? How does it?
Yes, 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 and all yes. They recognize that they are more interconnected than they ever knew before.
Of course, yeah.
They recognize that they're not necessarily the most intelligent thing on the planet anymore. They recognize that they have an ability to get better with this. It's not just something that you're born with at a certain level and you can't improve on. They recognize that their perception of consciousness and what it is to be human changes, because we're earth human. The Ponti are Pontel human. Even the Sasquatch are still considered human in their body type. They are Sasquatch human, but they are still bipedal, walking upright, 2 arms, 2 legs, usually no tail, 1 head, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose and mouth. And that if you were to look at these similar looking peoples genetically, they are not all that different.
No.
So
what do you think? I ask these questions and I have my own opinions on it, but I'm phrasing them as a question, right? So do you think that the interaction with Sasquatch, some people talk about negative interactions and positive. Do you think it has to do more with differences in the Sasquatch people in different regions, or is it more to do with how the people interact with them?
both. And the reason that I say both is that we have reports of a very violent Sasquatch clan or group in Russia. We also have reports of a very violent group up in Alaska. Are they violent because they've had pretty bad interactions in the past with Earth humans and they just don't want anything to do with any of us? Or is it something else in their culture that they see us as a food source instead of something else? We don't have the answers to that yet. We do know that, like most of us, it's unusual to find an extremely violent culture where it's pervasive amongst all of the individuals of that village, clan, tribe, family, group. Do I think that we know enough yet to understand what makes them angry, what makes them violent, what makes them want to attack? Not always, because we haven't asked.
Right.
And so I suspect that they're pretty tired of people thinking that they can play a recording and bang on trees and get their attention these days. But we do find that, like most of us, if you take the time to get to know the individual as a person,
Right.
with their own likes and dislikes and history and pain growing up or experiences that made them angry or sad or both, that you come to understand why they react the way that they do more. And so, do I think that you're going to see the whole spectrum amongst the Sasquatch, just like you see the whole spectrum amongst us as Earth humans? Sure, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm very glad that the reports of violence here in North America are few and far between. They're not zero, but that's the exception to the rule rather than the rule.
I agree with you totally, everything you said. But just to reiterate, I still think that, you know, and I'm not contradicting you. I totally agree. But I think that, you know, there could be some people that are having bad interaction with Sasquatch because they're not respecting them. They're intrusive. They might be threatening them in some ways, hunting, whatever. And they will react in a way that either they ignore them or they might try to scare them off or give them some kind of negative response. Whereas that same clan, if you went at them and, hi, I'm Brian, I would like to get to know you, and go with a heart-based kind of attitude or whatever, you will get a totally different reaction. Now, some of these violent clans, like you said, I'm not going to say that that could be the case, but in a lot of cases, it does have to do with how you approach them.
Sure. You're walking into their house.
Right.
When you go into the forest, you're walking into their house, not your park. And well, I don't know about you, but anytime I meet a brand new person who walks into my house, if I see them carrying a plate of cookies, that's a little bit different than if they don't have them. And so I come into a new location and try and stop and always bring something for them as a thank you. And I don't take 2 steps from my car before I get out and introduce myself and tell them who I am and why I'm there.
Yeah. Or just introduce yourself with love.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
I mean, they're a race of people. If somebody's going to just walk right through your door without knocking, start taking pictures and, you know, like having no respect for you, you're going to get the hell out. You might, you know, but if they knock on the door and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, extend your hand, they're going to get a good positive reaction from you. It's really as simple as that, too.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And especially if you are aware that you're not just interacting with adult males, you're interacting with males and females and young and old and kids who are still vulnerable in their eyes. And so we are very respectful of their children and know that their kids are going to make mistakes just like our kids do sometimes. And we want their children to be as safe as we want our children to be. And so that's one of the reasons that I have focused on drawing the children and the females and the young and the old so that all of us don't come away with thinking we're just interacting with adult males, because we're not. So my friends,
we really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to. I was just going to say I don't want to keep you too long.
I need to let
I could go on forever, but can I just ask you one more thing?
One more thing.
And this is and then we'll wrap it up. And I really appreciate you hanging in there with us because we've been going 3 hours. We had a little pre-show too, right? So to you, and I would suspect that the message of the Ponte and the Sasquatch for us is basically the same. So what is the message as you see it for people?
What is the message? We have cousins that we don't know are cousins yet, who are very knowledgeable about us, much more so than we are about them. And they're coming forth and saying, we'd like to meet you in a good way. Is that all right? Whether those cousins are from off-world or from the heart of our own forests, we have family that look a little different than we do, that can make our understanding of life, the universe, and everything a little bit better and a little bit easier. And if we're open to learning.
Beautiful.
That's it in kind of a nutshell.
That's beautiful.
So,
Okay, well, that's amazing, because I was just about to tell you I don't want to keep you too long when you and then you started saying it.
Telepathy works.
Tell us
Who
where we can
knew?
hook up with you.
All right. So if you want to, we've talked about the Telepathy 101 primer. If you want a free copy, it's available in more than a dozen languages, including sign language now. And it's at the website officialfirstcontact.com in the documents section. If you want to know why the Ponti are here, I mean, what gives? Why did they come to Earth? We asked them and they told us, and we put together a video about what they've said, and it's called Why We Are Here. And that's an interesting bit to go to. If you would like to see some of what they've taught me, whether that's the archaeoplanetography we've chatted about, or other bits and pieces of information, or just to see the artwork that they've taught me to do, because I didn't have any formal art training, guys. My art teacher is an extraterrestrial named Mim, and she's fabulous. She's very patient. But if you would like to see what the Sasquatch of our local North Central New Mexico clan look like, they're the long-nosed clan, and there's plenty of pictures of adults and children. If you want to go through and learn some of the things that the Ponti have shared with us, my YouTube channel is very simple. It's just Sue Walker. And if you remember to not put an E on Sue, you'll find me. So Sue Walker YouTube channel. If you want the funnier side of the Ponti, there is a Close Encounters of the Pontelkind YouTube channel that tells about the humorous side of Ponti visitation to Earth humans, where it's turned out to be hilarious. So that's available.
And a group on Facebook?
That there is a group on Facebook, the Sandia Mountain Ponti, Friends of the Sandia Mountain Ponti, I think it is. And you can join that Facebook. It's a private group. They ask you to answer a few questions like, do you know anybody in the Ponti, or what brought you to this, this place? And so you can join the Facebook group, or you can go to Twitter and at Sandia Wisdom on Twitter, or just Sandia the ET on Twitter. So there's all kinds of resources. There's books and coloring books out there now. If you want to teach your kids, we've created a series of 6 coloring books that are factual, that are official first contact, and that goes to support our nonprofit called the Infinite Voice Project.
So you do the, and I hope I haven't cut you off when you're still talking about what you offer the primer for free.
Yes. Yes.
That really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to look into that, not because I'm cheap, but because
it's an easy way to get started, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. But you don't have to pay a penny to see.
That speaks to character, though, because I think this stuff is so important and has to be sure that to give it away with love and free
Mhm.
really speaks volumes as to who you are.
Mhm. The
I agree with you. I
archaeoplanetography
really love that.
information we have on my YouTube channel is also free, along with lessons 1 and 2. And I think we've put out 65 videos, some short, some long, on the images in the landscape and some
Love
of the
that. Love that
symbolism.
stuff. It's all kind of fun.
Oh, it is. It's fascinating. So there's lots of things that you can see, lots of things to do, lots of things to learn. If you want a telepathy practice group, there's groups that meet all over the planet at all different times that you can join for free. And so again, practice with feedback and you'll learn what it feels like
So you
in
could
your
try to
body
send a
to
message
be
to one of
right.
your friends, right?
That's right.
And then you could call them up and say, "Did you get the message?"
That's right. We call
That's
that
very cool.
pinging each other.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Pinging.
Pinging, like sonar, radar, ping, ping. Yep. So if I ping you, it means I've sent you a short, quick telepathic message. Did you get it? And so if somebody else comes to you out of the blue and you weren't really thinking about them for any reason, and they just kind of showed up in your head, they may have pinged you. So you grab your smartphone and you text them back, got your ping, what you need.
Are there any books you want to promote?
Yeah.
And are you planning on doing a Sasquatch book?
We are, we've written one companion book to the Telepathy 101 primer, and it's called Inviting ET. And basically it's how do you, if you're by yourself or with a group of 150 people, how do you go about inviting a Star Nation person or persons to come see you? And if you do, what can you expect is normal? And that kind of runs the gamut, but our Inviting ET book is got quotes from our Ponte friends. Otter and I kibitzed writing it together and tried to answer all the questions that came up after people had studied the Telepathy 101 primer for a while and said, I got some more questions. And that's what we tried to address.
Excellent.
So,
you know, humor is a sign of intelligence. And isn't it wonderful that Sasquatch and the Ponte are both very, very humorous?
I love that we understand their humor and they understand ours. That has smoothed all kinds of things over, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
My friends, I need to let you go. I've got to figure out a little bit of food for my system and check on Otter and see how he's faring. But this has been delightful. Thank you.
Let me just
Thank you very much.
Let me just say that this is literally, truthfully, one of my favorite shows we've ever done. And we've done well over maybe 150 now or something. We've done a lot of shows.
You have.
This has been a great, great show.
It has been a good one.
And so on behalf of Port Cunningham and the world's handsomest man, the guru of love, Frank Olivavines, this has been the Pork and Bean Show. Thank you so much, Sue Walker. You feel like family. You feel like friends.
Love everybody. Come and visit our group, the Pork and Bean Show group. Come and visit Mr. Pork Cunningham's YouTube channel. It's got a good YouTube channel, and he's got like a million videos on there.
Yeah, it's called the Sasquatch BC, the true story. Of course, I would say it's the true story, but
nice.
And the Pork and Bean Show. So
excellent.
Thank you, Sue.
You're very welcome.
We'll have you on again because
oh, we're not done.
Next time,
you talk to your friends. You update.
Next time, drag your
better half.
I was going to say better half, but
my other side. Yep, I will. I'll try and drag him in.
Or you know what you can do? You could get him. You could get him his own little computer or phone, and he could use that. So it'd be two guests instead of one.
We could do that because of Otter's Parkinson's tremor. Anytime he goes to press a single key on a keyboard, whether that's his phone or a laptop, it's multiple strikes. And so I have to be the typist to log him in, but once he's there, as long as he doesn't have to do much on the keyboard, he does good. But that's been part of the bane is that trying to get information, even to write with a pencil or a pen with such a tremor that's so dramatic, it's very frustrating for him.
Yeah.
And he's learned to memorize a lot of things because he doesn't have the advantage of writing himself a note or typing it out. And so we've had to shift roles in a few things in our household because he used to be the chef and the cook, and wielding a knife like this doesn't work anymore. And so I've learned to gourmet cook, and I have a really good teacher. So if you ever come our way, we'll feed you really good.
You're still in Albuquerque?
We are in a suburb of Albuquerque, 10 miles west of the Sandia Mountain.
Are you by, you're not by Mount Shasta, no.
No.
Okay.
Nope. I'm in the land that is supposed to be a good place come the changes that are coming to our planet. So.
Well, I think the good place is in your heart.
I think so too.
Because they will come and take care of their people, no matter where you are, I think. I think it works out.
That's our guess. That's our
Team
guess.
Inside Out. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. By the way,
all right, my dears, I've got to run. We'll see you and talk to you another time, I'm sure. But thank you again
absolutely.
for having me on. And Ari, see you later, dude.
Bye-bye. You passed the
Bye-bye.
audition. You passed the audition.
Thank you.
Yeah, like John Lennon. I think we passed the audition. That was yeah.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Let's see here.
I'll do it.
Bottom right of the way.
I'll do it. I'll do it. See you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye.
I noticed you put that poster up just to get under my skin.
Yeah, but you can't read it. It says Inside Out Team.
I know. And I want to know why I'm not on that poster.
Well, because you don't know. You don't know the great Tina B. Thomas.
Well, we're going to have her on the show, right? Maybe I'll get to know her.
At some point, we're going to get her on there. You know, she just had a fabulous interaction with her Sasquatch teacher, who's a young Sasquatch named Sonny B. Sonny Boy, I think.
Sonny boy.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. She's already had something like a love zap kind of a something. I don't know what it is, but so because she's still new, it's only been like a few months for her.
Well, I mean, the first year for me was pretty intense, so I understand. Yeah. So is she on Facebook?
Yeah, she's in our group.
Okay, well, I'll send her a friend request and then arrange to have her on the show.
Definitely, you should just back her up and support her. You know, I kind of try to let her know that all the stuff that's happening to her is kind of natural, and it's a way that you know she's being mentored. But I think she has visions and mind speak and all kind of good stuff. So
excellent,
an interesting guest.
This was a great show we had today.
Sure was. It's always a good.
It was a really fabulous show.
This is historic, you know, this whole thing that's happening with the ET people and the Sasquatch people is historic.
Yeah.
It's historic, you know. The Sasquatch are teaching mind speak too, because a lot of people get their first mind speak from a Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, well, my stomach is growling and I'm going to go out and enjoy the day. So thanks everybody for tuning in today.
Sasquatch say, don't shoot.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Beans, for showing up.
Yeah,
see you later, everybody.
It was a struggle, but I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me as your the exclusive special guest host.
Hey, man, we're in this together. I had to drag you into it, but now that you've been into it for 3 years, it's almost become a part of your life.
Because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it on my own. You already, you know.
Yeah. Okay, my friend. See you next time.
coming down. Take my phone. Pilot high, pilot high, pilot high, high. For the tummy, oh my, love a big old plate of pork and beef. Goody, 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 goody. Love it, love it, love it. In the tummy, love baby, love high, love ooh, love why. I love me some bowling rain. Don't you know you gotta need that feed. You got to have some pork and bean. Pork and bean. I'm gonna holla, bowling rain. Yo, mashed potato, oh. Have it now, don't wait for later. By the time, oh, why you only play for the ball. Come get your help, come sing a scene.